guys, it's Sam, and this is my spoiler-free review for Rule of Wolves by Leigh Bardugo. This is the second book in the King of Scars duology. I do have a review for the first book, so I'll leave that on the screen. There might be spoilers for the first book. I don't know I'm gonna mention this review yet, so if you haven't read it, check out that review. So as you may or may not know, I was incredibly disappointed by the first book in this series. So I went into this book with very low expectations, and I think that helped me out. This picks up directly after the events of the first book, and continues to follow the same characters. So Nikolai, Zoya, Nina, but also Mayu. There wasn't a pronunciation guide for this book, so I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. Who is the Queen's Guard from the Shu delegation that came. So through her, we get more of the Shu storyline stuff. So first off, we talk about the world building. I don't really think there was too much more world building in most of like the Ravkan or Fjerdan stuff that we had before, but there was more for the Shu than we have had. Still not as much as obviously we have for like Ravkan and some of the other places that we've been. So I do still think that the Shu plot lines like overall are very underdeveloped in contrast to the other places, but we do get sort of more of like the Shu political structure and beliefs and kind of what's going on there. So that was kind of nice because I did feel like throughout the Grishaverse, the Shu anything has been very lacking. They've just been kind of like placed in there as an afterthought in a lot of ways. So we got that more fleshed out. And I do think as far as the magic, it got more contained again, almost, I would say. I feel like in King of Scars, we went like a little bit off the rails with some of the stuff with the Saints and even like Zoya's powers. And that is still true here. Like there are still some things that I'm like, we're like going off the deep end a little bit, but it felt a little bit more like it was playing by some set of rules than it had been in King of Scars for some reason. Next, I talk about our characters, and I do think our characters are the most important part of this series overall. With the first book, I thought that the characters, like the character stuff was not super well done, and especially with a lot of like the antagonist stuff and just, yes, a lot of problems. I do think it was better in this book. The antagonist problem remains the same though. There are, I believe, 5 different antagonists in this book. Why? Too many? No. And no one really quite felt like a threat either at this point because we're so far into the Grishaverse that I'm like, all these people are gonna be ineffective. But as far as our like main characters, I felt like they were much better done in this book than they have been in the previous book. So Zoya especially, honestly, I don't know why this is called the King of Scars duology. This is Zoya's duology. Like I don't know why it was being referred to as the Nikolai duology. It is not. This is definitely her coming into her own. I believe she has the best arc of all of the characters in this duology. Her arc is the best. Nikolai's arc is still good, I guess, as well, but it feels very complementary to hers in a lot of ways. And then Nina, I did like more, her like storyline I liked more in this book than I did in the first book. The first book, it just felt like we were always leaving the main plot line to go and see what Nina was doing, and hers ties much more back in here. I will say, without giving spoilers, although you can check out my discussion, which I will be doing if you want the spoilery bits of this, there are some characters added into here that I don't think were necessary in a number of different ways. One, there is the Shu plotline, which I do think is good. However, there were so many characters and so many plot points, which I'll get to in a second in the plot point stuff, that it was just really convoluted and messy. And I don't feel like the amount of people that she brings in need to happen. I do kind of miss the times, even of like the Six of Crows duology, where it was just like a little bit more streamlined. You know, I don't need there to be this many characters, especially in a YA series. Like, keep it contained. So last time we talk about the plot, like I said, there are a lot of plot points in here with the amount of villains, the amount of just like all the different political players and stuff, that I honestly feel like this could have almost been a trilogy. Kind of glad that it wasn't, but it almost could have been just because of the vastness of everything kind of going on. I will say that by the end, like the last 20% of this, I really enjoyed. I do think she managed to tie it up like fairly well. Some things still didn't get the amount of time that I think they deserved, but I do think that those things were done fairly well. As far as any twists in here, I think the twists were mostly very predictable. There were a couple things that happened that I just like, I knew that they would be involving those characters, and when something happened, I like could call it. So I don't think that the twists are like particularly shocking or like well done or anything, which is fine. You don't need like a ton of twists in a book or anything to like make it great. But those things were a little bit weaker, I'd say. But the way that things are wrapped up here, I am very content with, and I'm hoping, I'll talk about this more in my discussion, I want her to leave Ravka alone from now on. I think this was fine. As a supplementary, I wouldn't even say that people need to necessarily read this book. I mean, if she continues in the Grishaverse, sure, whatever. But this doesn't feel like this duology doesn't feel like an essential piece. Like, I really don't feel like this duology had happened, honestly. But I would like her to leave the Ravgen characters alone. Let them rest now, okay? They are fine where they are. But who knows if she will do that or not. I don't know. Honestly, I kind of want her to like go back and start doing the Ninth House stuff. I want to see where that goes. Leave the Grisha alone for a bit. I know it's sacrilegious that I'm saying that, but if I'm saying that, you know it's true. This review may have been kind of shit-talky, but it's not. I actually, like I said, I really liked the end of this. I liked this much more than I did the first book, and the characters felt like better to me than in the first book. So I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Still not perfect. I have a lot of complaints, but way better than the first book for me. So like I mentioned, I'll be doing a discussion about this. So if you want to hear more of my in-depth thoughts about all of the ins and outs of this book, I will link that on the screen. So comment below, let me know what you thought of Rule of Wolves. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye.